Hey everybody, welcome to Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. My name is Mario. Welcome back. We've been off for a little bit, but we are here and it's about to go down today. Marcellas Reynolds is joining us on the show. Marcellas talks about his beginnings, him living in the beautiful neighborhood of South Shore, and going to Kenwood High School here in Hyde Park, how it formed him, shaped him, and put him on the path on this amazing journey. Man, if you are sitting down, buckle up. If you're standing up, sit down. It's time for Marcellas Reynolds on this edition of Randomly Selected. Marcellas Reynolds, welcome to Randomly Selected.
Thank you for having me, sir. I'm so incredibly happy to be here.
This is going to be one of those today. That's
Yes.
cool. I have been, in a weird way, following your career. Like, I'll see you on stuff. By virtue of living here in Chicago and not in Los Angeles, I didn't know you were doing Good Day LA and all that cool stuff out there. But I know that you're on, or were on with Tamron Hall. I know that you've done stuff for Fox 32 here in Chicago,
Yes.
and with Windy City Live when it was on and all that. And I'm learning more about you, the person, as opposed to you, the TV movie person. You're from South Shore?
I'm from the south side of Chicago. I grew up 77th and Clyde. Yeah.
Wow.
I went to Horace Mann High School.
Wow.
I mean, Horace Mann Grammar School.
Yeah.
It's grammar school, right?
Yes.
That's what it is when you are,
when you're a kid, it's grammar school. Horace Mann, I went to Bradwell,
Okay.
and I'm from 77th and Marquette, or 78th and Marquette.
So you're like west.
Yeah.
You were
Well,
west.
toward Rainbow Beach. Because you said Clyde, right?
Yeah. So wait, you were east.
Yeah, I was east. I was
You
toward
were east
Rainbow
of me.
Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
both from South Shore. What was...
Like I don't know where Rainbow Beach is.
Here we go. What is your Chicago experience like? How would you relate that to someone?
I mean, it's trippy to actually be sitting here in Hyde Park taping this podcast because I haven't been, I think the last time I was here was maybe 4 years ago. I came to a block party, a Silver Room block party. Maybe 4 years ago. But, Chicago, those are the streets that made me. I was the little gay black kid on the South Side, teased, bullied. The thing about me, though, was I was a fighter. Like, you say something I didn't like, I'd hit you in your mouth. And then they figured out that he was a fighter, and then it would be like, at first it was one-on-one. Right. Somebody would get flipped and get slapped. And then it was like groups, but we were hood, Yeah. There were three of us. It was me, my cousin who lived with my grandmother who lived in the same building I lived in, and then my brother. We were stair steps a year apart. Right. So if you said something to one of us, you might as well have said it to all of us. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, you wouldn't even see Anthony. The youngest one of us was Buck Wild, still Buck Wild to this day, my brother. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it would be like this wonderful child of God would jump out of a tree or something on somebody. So, but, and then I was smart, so I ended up testing and got into Hyde Park first, and I really did not want to go to Hyde Park. And luckily, Kenwood came through, and I got into Kenwood, and I went to Kenwood. And Kenwood really was what I think changed me and created who I am today, because that was the first time. Chicago is very segregated in a weird way. You could be on the south side of Chicago, and the only white people you would see growing up when I was growing up was my teachers, or maybe if you went to the doctor, your doctor was white. But everybody that lived around you. There was one white family that lived on the corner of my house. They were Greek, though, so they might as well have been black. Because Johnny and Helen and what was the other sister's name? They was Buck Wild, too. I loved them. But, you didn't see that. So it was when I came to Hyde Park, it was like this crash course in sophistication. Yeah. Because very quickly it was like, I was dressing from like Smokey Joe's on State Street, Watch out. Back then. But then when you come here, it's like everybody's wearing Ralph Lauren, this polo, that, blah, 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 eyes on this, da-da-da-da. So I had to catch up excuse my language, real quick.
Go for it, you good.
And I caught up quick.
Yeah. The Hyde Park experience, South Shore and Hyde Park, right next to each other, essentially. but worlds apart.
Worlds
in
apart.
a lot of different ways. Did you find that you were able to kind of influence some of your new friends here in Hyde Park with your South Shore sensibility?
No, the big influence for me was, aside from the fact that like Kenwood was so white and being around white people and being in classes with white people, and being exalted in a way at Kenwood for being an individual, for being different, because that stuff is kind of beat out of you on the South Side. You know, how black people have to figure out how, still to this day, I think, how they want to deal with gay kids. Because the things that make you special, unless it's basketball, you know, unless it's a sport, but the things that make you special on the South Side are the things that end up people hate you for.
Yeah.
So for me growing up, you know, I was very particular about the clothes I wore. And my mother thought I was cute, so she had me like, I was auditioning for like plays and stuff, you know, like that kind of thing. She was like, you know, you're gonna be a star, because I was her first kid, you know. And so I had and then, you know, my grandmother, who was like the doyen of the family, was very into this idea that you're the first grandson, you get whatever you want. So I got like, I was like, you know, my brothers would be in rags and I would be in like brand new outfits and go shopping with my grandmother and my mother because I could be good and they wouldn't be good. They didn't get the memo. My grandmother would be like, if you're good, you can come shopping with me on Saturday. And we would go to Marshall Fields and we would go to Carson's and we would, you know, da-da-da. And they would be acting crazy in the store. My grandmother would be like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to beat your ass here in the store. And then I'm not going to bring you next week. You know, and that's that. But I would be sitting there and I'd be like, I love that coat, mama. You know, I would be like, oh my God. You know, so I'd come home with like new outfits because she's not going to take me shopping and then not buy me nothing. And so they got to wear, you know, my hand-me-downs and I got new outfits all the time. So I sort of grew up like with this idea that I was like a prince. And then when my grandmother clicked in and was like, oh, you're smart, she bought me a set of encyclopedias, you know? So that was the kind of thing she was like, I'd ask her a question and she'd be like, go get the R. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? Go get the M. Don't ask me that question. I spent all this money on these fucking Britannica, you know, Encyclopedia Britannicas. Go get that R. Nigga, bring it over here and read it to me. How do I know where Rome is? You know,
oh God!
Knowing she knew where Rome was, but you know, so I came in like into grammar school like equipped like that, thinking I was special because I would, you know, go to a casting and be the only like gay kid, not the only gay kid. Let me stop sitting in the seat of gayness. Be the only black kid, you know, and I don't remember ever booking anything, but I had like an agent in the whole 9 yards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was theatrical. So this is something that I will always carry with me. So you know how you get the school play? There's always like a couple of school plays each year, right?
Yeah.
So every year I would come in and I would audition, and you know, and every play is like some iteration of like all the black elite. So it's like Frederick Douglass is gonna walk on the stage, and Crispus Attucks is gonna walk on the stage, and Madam C.J. Walker is gonna walk on the stage. But this is like a play that the teacher just wrote, you know.
Right. And these are like little kids.
We're little kids. Yeah. So every year I would walk in my outfit in like a little suit, and I would be like, I'm Marcellas Reynolds, and I'm auditioning for Martin Luther King. And I would do the I have a dream speech and and hit my notes and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And whoever the teacher was would be like, congratulations, you're Joseph Sinkyu, the slave. Congratulations, you're Frederick Douglass. Congratulations, you're, you know, like this person, that person. And I would be like, I want to be Martin Luther King. But there was this nigga named Jonathan Wyndham. And I remember this to the end of my life. Every year he got to be Martin Luther King because he looked like Martin Luther King.
Oh, wow. But you nailed the speech.
And I would be in there like, I had a dream that one day... And she would be like, congratulations. And I remember specifically the year I got to be Crispus Attucks. He dies in like the first act. And the rest of the play, I'm laying there playing dead as people like walk over me. Because, you know, he died during the Revolutionary War. He's like, that's the start.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be Crispus Attucks. I came in here for the starring role because no matter how good your performance was, everybody gave Martin Luther King's character the standing ovation when he did the I
no
Had
matter
a Dream
who it
speech.
was. Yeah.
And Jonathan got it every year, and I would be like, I would go home and my mother would be like, did you get it? No! I'm dying in the first 5 minutes. Don't even come to the play. I got to lay there dead.
As Christmas
With a piece of red cut-out cardboard paper clipped to my chest for blood.
Oh, really? Word.
Going. Don't come. Fuck selling a ticket.
Oh, my God.
We're not coming. I'm not doing it.
We asked Marcellas about his beginnings as a model. We also asked him about how he started as a writer and the things that shaped that journey. Again, if you are standing up, why aren't you sitting down? Enjoy some more Marcellas Reynolds here on Randomly Selected.
I have like one of those, Lana Turner Hollywood stories. I actually do. It's actually kind of funny. Oh. So I left the South Side and got a job. I think what Kim would set me up for was like being fully accustomed to being the only black person in a room and working that room. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying.
There was this, even though Kenwood was still Kenwood and we were still kids, we would sneak into Sawyer's and we would Andre Hatchett and Frankie Knuckles. And there was this sort of like weird, like kind of gay thing, even though I didn't act upon my gayness in high school. But there was this like kind of idea that in Hyde Park, that whole kind of house music subculture was cool.
Yeah.
So I was like kind of a part of that because the rumor was that I was a gay kid. Plus I worked at a clothing store in Water Tower and made money and blah, 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 and dressed a specific way. Right. So from the clothing store in Water Tower, I started living on the North Side and meeting a bunch of white folks and hanging out with white folks, as well as black folks, and meeting models and meeting actresses and blah, 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 and that kind of thing, which was really cool. And then from working in retail, I ended up getting a job at a nightclub called Shelter, which was a huge nightclub here in like the early 90s. And I was the only, Zarina was black.
I know Zarina.
I was, do you know Zarina?
Yeah,
Zarina was
absolutely.
Beautiful.
When you said Shelter, I didn't go there a lot, but I remember seeing you at Shelter.
I was the VIP room cocktail waiter.
Yes.
But I called myself the cocktail wench, and I was the gay black cocktail waiter. And so I was like, I fell into that role where I would walk up to people in my section. I'd be like, oh, you can't sit in my section if you're not going to drink. And if you're going to drink, you have to tip me. And if you're just going to sit in my section, you still have to pay rent. Right. I was like that person. And so I took on this like character. But you would meet everybody that was anybody in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And from there, I met the owners. The owners of Shelter owned a restaurant called Vivo. So I ended up working at Vivo, which was like its own scene because everybody went to Vivo. And all these photographers would be like, oh, you're really good looking. We want to shoot you. And I would be like, fine, but I'm an actor. Mm. And then the people that own Vivo opened a restaurant across the street called Marche, and I ended up working at Marche. And I was making like $400 or $500 a night at Vivo and Marche. Because of my blackness and my gayness, people would come in and they would request me. Like, I had all these, they would have to give me a bigger section on a Friday and Saturday night because people would be like, oh, we want an 8 top at 8 o'clock and we want to sit in Marcellas' section. And people would wait to get into my section because I had a whole shtick. I would be walking around the restaurant, and I would make people open their own bottles of wine because I wasn't good at it, and but that's what you want on a Friday night. You want theater, you want like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that was like my shtick. And, I would be like, my favorite thing was at Marche, I was like, what are we celebrating today? Why don't we start with a glass of Veuve? And then people would be like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And then if it was more than 3 people at the table, I'd be like, well, since there's 3 of you, might as well just buy a bottle. So I sold more champagne in the restaurant than any other waiter. And the owners loved me. They were literally like, oh, shit,
Yeah.
And so I would use that. I would get away with stuff because I would be like, I sell more product than this bitch and I get more requests than anybody. Well, there was one guy that got more requests, but he would walk around the restaurant basically naked. Anyway. In like assless chaps, and we hated each other.
What?
It was like Team Joseph and Team Marcellas, and we both hated each other. The two gay guys were at war because people would request him and people would request me, and all my friends were like, you know, like models and like actors and like rich white folks, and all his people were like the gay guys.
Right.
And so he would be walking around dressed like an Indian, and even back then I would be like, you are not even Indian. That is cultural misappropriation, bitch. And if I have to wear black pants and a white shirt, you should put on pants because your ass is not that good, Joseph, to be honest. We hated each other. And he would be like, he would call me a fag all the time.
Oh, wow.
Like, but in the best possible way. Because I was like, I own that. So I would literally like swan in with like my bags from Barney's and I would be wearing some Jean-Paul Gaultier stuff. And then, you know, people would be like, who's that by? And I would be like, oh my God, it's Comme des Garçons. I just got it. You know, like I was like that guy. And Joseph was like kind of a leather boy. He was like literally like YMCA. He was like one of those guys. He was like the Village People. So you had the Village People gay guy, and then you had like the fashion gay guy, and the two of us hated each other. But it made for great theater at the restaurant, you know, at Marche. So one day I was working my penance lunch because you had to work one lunch a week.
Absolutely.
And I was like, ugh, because, you know, at night you would make like $400 or $500 in cash. And so, you know, this lunch that I was making like $100 that I was like, fuck that.
Right.
But anyway, I was working my penance lunch. And I think they were like my first table that day. And I sauntered up to the table and I was like, you know, hi, ladies. And it was a table of 3 ladies. And I'm going to say something that's going to enrage ladies. But the conventional wisdom is that ladies don't tip and they want everything on the side and they're difficult. So I walked up there with my I've got to work lunch attitude. And I was like, hi, ladies. What are we celebrating today? Why don't we start with a glass of champagne? And one of the women looked up at me and she was like, God, I think she said, you're beautiful. She said something like that. Mm-hmm. And she said, you should be a model. And then the other 2 ladies started laughing. And I was like, not having it. I was like, listen, have the salmon. It's wonderful. And then the one lady was like, no, she's serious. We're serious. She's like, we own Aria Models up the street. Wow. And I knew Aria Models. And I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah, I'm Mary and she's Mary and I'm Marie. And then the third lady owned an agency in St. Louis called Centro. And she's like, and I own an agency in St. Louis called Centro. So anyway, they were like, well, what's your story? And I was like, I'm an actor because I was working my way through college at University of Circle.
Okay. U of I.
And at U of I.
Illinois, Chicago. Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm an actor, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, it just so happens that I just shot for Mademoiselle like a couple weeks ago with Stephen Scott Gross. Because he had come in the restaurant, he saw me, and he asked me if I wanted to do a model gig for him. And I said, yes. And this is the article in Mademoiselle, which is a women's magazine, women's fashion magazine, was, would you date a black guy? And there's me standing there, my gay ass, being the black guy. And so everybody that saw that was like, you could date a black guy, but don't date that one because he ain't into it.
Wow.
And so I had that film, and then I had shot... I was about to shoot a layout for Michael Voltatore, who was Victor Skripneski's assistant for Chicago Social.
Yes, yeah.
And I was the only black guy in that. And it turned out. So anyway, I ended up, she said, come in, meet my booker, meet the head of the men's board. I went in, I had my Mademoiselle film, not the actual thing because I hadn't ran yet, but I had the outtakes. Mm-hmm. And he said no. And he didn't really give me, he looked at my book, he looked at me, made me take my shirt off, and he was like, no. And I was like, fine, I don't want to be a model anyway, I'm an actor. And the Mademoiselle thing ran, and then the Chicago Social thing ran. And when he saw the Chicago Social thing, it was all Aria Models. It was like 7 guys. I was the only guy that didn't have an agency and wasn't with Aria, and 1 girl. And it was like a reservoir thing. So everybody's wearing like different black suits and da-da-da-da-da. But whereas all the other models were like standing around trying to like, you know, give you face, I'm running, I'm jumping, I'm dancing with the girl. I'm being like a complete spaz because again, I'm an actor.
Right.
And so I had like all the, you know, I was the only guy that had a single. I was in every shot with the girl. And, you know, the whole thing was like, you know, wow, you took that over. So he saw that and he bought me in. He called me and bought me back in. And he was like, we want to sign you. You know, he was like, let me apologize to you for not taking you on. But he was like, to be honest, I had too many black guys. And I looked at this board that had like easily like 100 models on it, 100 male models on it. And at the very bottom, there were 4 black guys, none of which looked like me. And that was the first time I really understood fashion and I really understood modeling. And that's what set me up for Supreme Models, because that's what it was like for black models. The first 2 years of my career, it was crazy. I worked almost every single day.
Yeah.
I was in New York. I was in Dallas. I was in it was crazy. I worked for Ebony Man. I worked here
Ebony
for like,
Man.
That's how far back. This was like 95.
Okay.
Target, Montgomery Ward's every day. Venture was in St. Louis. You used to go to Venture. I would go to Target in Minneapolis. I would do weeks on end in Dallas for JCPenney. But then I would also do shows here in Chicago, and then I would do the shows at the Big Oak Street show and da-da-da-da-da. And I wasn't even a model, so I didn't even understand what was like going on, but I did understand that fucking money.
Right.
And I was like, the crazy thing too was like, I was so black about it where I didn't trust money. I didn't trust modeling. So I still kept my like nighttime job. Yeah. So I was still working at Marche. I was still working at like Cafe Absinthe in Bucktown. I was still doing whatever, but I was like $2,500 a day boy, you know, like that kind of thing. And, but then I would go to like, you know, you go to a different market and try to get an agency and they would be like, oh, we already have a black guy. And then you look at the board and it's like, but you represent 75 men. So you have every iteration of white person known to mankind. You have a couple of Latinos, some of which who can be white. And then you got 2 black guys. You got an old black guy and then you got a light-skinned black guy with light eyes. And you think that that's enough for representation. Why did they,
and they continue, I guess, to do that, but why?
And it was worse for girls. It was worse. No, it was worse for guys, but it was this, I think there's something, men should have thicker skin, I think, than women. And there's something tricky about telling a woman that she's not good enough in this weird way. Well, we already have a black girl, you know? And so all my friends, being the gay guy, were black girls, you know, and girls. And these were really young girls because girls start younger than guys. So some of them were like 13, 14, and you know, and so they're being judged by their looks, their bodies, their height, Yeah. And then you add in this idea when you're the black girl that there can only be one, and it fosters this competition, you know, amongst us. And there's already intrinsically competition amongst us because of slavery.
Exactly.
You know, and then you know, the lighter skinned girl with the good hair is the one that works all the time, but the incredibly fabulous dark skinned girl with that incredible chocolate hair and her ringlets, her natural hair, has to get a weave, you know, or relax her hair or wear a wig or blah blah blah. So that literally led the groundwork. That moment in time put me on the path to these books. Because I saw how black models were treated when I was a model, and then when I became a fashion stylist, really was like this insider view on how not democratic fashion is.
Here we talk to Marcellas about his beginnings as a freelance stylist for a company called Bonton. For the uninitiated, at the time, Bonton owned Macy's and Carson's and a bunch of other high-end stores. And we asked him, what was that experience like working as a freelance stylist and how it helped shape his career. Here's more with Marcellas Reynolds on Randomly Selected.
So I'm going to move away from Macy's and I'm going to talk about Bon-Ton and Carson's because that was a Chicago thing. Remember Carson's on State Street, but it's owned by a company called Bon-Ton. Yeah. And for like 6 or 7 years, I was like a stylist, a freelance stylist, but I worked there almost every day for like years. I would literally come back out here from Chicago, from LA, stay with my sister on 18th Street. They would put you up at a hotel. You'd get in Sunday, you'd work till Friday, you'd go home, I'd come back out here to see my sister, and then I'd go back Sunday and do it again. And here was the thing. I loved working at Bon-Ton. I loved working for Carson's because when I was a model, I worked at Carson's. Carson's booked me a lot, and I loved that because there's something about your hometown seeing you on a poster or in a commercial. There's a stupid commercial of me and this girl named Michelle dancing on the bridge, and she's wearing neon gloves, and I'm pretending like I'm blowing a saxophone. That was like one of my first gigs, and I loved that. So for me, doing Carson's was like history. It was like, man, this was my shit. Not only that, that was my mama's favorite store. My mother loved Carson's. Right. My grandmother was a Marshall Fields Neiman Marcus girl. My mother was a Carson's girl. So I freelanced. I didn't work there. I didn't get insurance, blah, blah, blah. They booked me through my agency, which at the time was Ford here in Chicago. And I would walk into that building knowing that I was the only black person in that building because there was nobody black on staff.
Wow.
Now,
what year are we talking?
We're talking, I started working at Bon-Ton like 2011 until the end of 2017. I worked for them. They were my biggest client as a stylist.
Yeah. And you were still the only black person
there? I was the only black person. There were no black people on staff. There was a woman that worked downtown that was like the head of everything who was black.
Okay.
But the freelancers brought the color in. And so if there was no black model on set that day, I was the only black person in the room. And so you have that sense of responsibility where you walk in and you're like, okay, it's me. All eyes on me. I have to be better. But you also have that fear that you can be replaced if your blackness is too black or if your gayness is too gay. So you're walking a line. And I talk too much.
As most 54-year-olds are prone to do. Yes, I know.
And if I saw something I didn't like, fuck you.
Was that
I was like, if I saw something I didn't like, I felt compelled to tell.
Yeah.
I was like the whistleblower.
Yeah.
But I was also in that seat of, I don't need this as much as somebody else needs this because I'm a TV host and I have all these other streams of revenue going. So it's easier for me to sort of be a truth teller and a whistleblower. But at the same time, to be honest, I was pulling like 60, 70 grand out of Bon-Ton a year, out of Carson's a year. So my black ass did need that job. Right. If I let go of that job, I needed to replace that with something that was big.
Right.
And so I would see things that would happen. And a typical thing that would happen all the time, specifically to black girls, was you'd get this black model who would turn up, and a white hair and makeup stylist would say to her, "Oh, I don't know how to do your hair," or "I don't have makeup for you."
Right.
And they would send the black girl home. Instead of sending that hair and makeup artist who doesn't know how to do their job, who probably had their ass in Pivot Point in like the late 80s.
Ooh, not Pivot Point.
Right up there on Randolph.
Pivot Point. I got friends
and
that
hasn't
Pivot Point.
refreshed her skills since then. Actually felt confident enough in her job that she could say to the black girl, "I can't do your hair." Or "I can't do your makeup." And instead of sending that wonderful child of God home, they send the black girl home. Well, the black girl has put all her hopes and dreams in that day. You know, that's a $1,500, $2,500 day for her. That's going to pay her rent.
Right, exactly.
You know, or this is a new client and this will get me and I'll start working for them all the time. And now I'm working, you know, but now because some lazy ass, probably person, not white person, because black hair and makeup artists had to know how to do every damn thing twice.
You can't just do black people
better than everybody else.
Yeah,
right. So if a black person had said, "Oh, I don't know how to do white hair," they would have got sent home.
Right.
But I saw that time after time. And being the stylist is very intimate with the model. There's a moment where it's just you and the girl in the room. Mm-hmm. And you're catching up with them, and it's like, how's your child? How's your man? Oh, y'all broke up. Sorry about that. Shouldn't have asked that question. You know, you're like, you know, getting them pumped to get on set and do their thing, create their art. And if things didn't go well in the makeup room, that girl is destroyed by the time she gets to me. So my job is now to put her back together. Right. Because if she's not 100% when she walks out on that set, then the whole day is shitty. Mm-hmm. Or if she's a diva or if she's this, I have to figure out in my head how to get her right so that when she walks out on that set, we can get these however many looks done so I can go home. You know what I mean? We have to get through this day. And so when you've been in a chair where the makeup artist doesn't know how to do makeup and you don't feel like your makeup looks good, or you've been in the chair and your hair looks janky because she done sprayed your curls with water and now your shit is frizzy. You walk into my room and you're upset. And I can't tell you how many times I've like had girls cry because they feel like it's their fault for being black, or they feel like it's their fault because of the texture that grows out of their head. Mm-hmm. Or I've had girls be pissed off and want to leave, but then they can't leave because then the agent would get mad, so they just have to suck it up, you know. Or I've had one of the last jobs I did at Bontown. I had a girl, fantastic girl named Sydney. Perfect. You didn't have to put makeup on Sydney. That skin was perfect. Throw some mascara on her eyes and let her go. And this same white girl that I had seen for years, missing a tooth, by the way, hate her. I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but like, I hate her. So for listeners, if you know who she is, because I hate her. Anyway, she told Sydney that she couldn't do her hair and makeup. And Sydney came in. That's the thing with black girls, too. They kind of come in ready
to go. Yeah, exactly.
They kind of come in the way they're going to look. And Sydney was so upset because she was like kind of new. And she was like, what should I do? And I didn't like this makeup artist anyway because she was a Trump supporter. So I was like, you stay right here. I'll be right back. I marched my little black ass into that office and I like screamed at the top of my lungs. What was that fucking bitch's name? But I was like, that's it. I've been here too many times and watched her tell too many girls that are beautiful and perfect that they're not perfect. I've been here too many times and watched her slack while I'm working like a slave, putting up the pyramids, and she's sitting there on her phone instead of doing touch-ups.
Right.
That's it. Put Sydney in somebody else's chair and get her looks right. And never, ever put me with that girl again.
Right.
And then I said, I'm calling her agent, who I happen to have known. And I'm telling her, too. But if this means you have to make sure that everybody that you hire from this point on is trained and retrained, that's going to happen. We're not going through this again because Sydney is in the dressing room crying and she doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
So Matt came running out and he came back there and he got the story and blah, blah, blah. And they put her in another chair and snatched Sydney and got her right. And the next time I worked, I had to work with that same makeup artist because there were no ramifications for her.
Well. You thought you knew him, and you like, yeah, I think I know that name, Marcellas Reynolds, and the voice sounds familiar. I bet it's from Big Brother Season 3. He was the first gay black man on a reality TV show. Here is where it really starts to get interesting. More with Marcellas Reynolds.
I did Big Brother 3, so I'm old school.
Right.
I was the first, the first iteration.
Yeah.
And I was the first ever gay black man to appear on a reality show, on a major network reality show. Now, let me quantify that because these books are about giving people their due.
And I definitely want to talk about the books, too.
On The Real World, San Francisco, Pedro Zamora, who I think was the first Latino gay guy who eventually died of AIDS, but he was the first person that had AIDS, and he was a groundbreaker because he was honest about his journey and his sickness and blah, blah, blah. Right. He is legend. His boyfriend on the show, who he married on the show, was black. but he wasn't a cast member, so he was only in like 2 or 3 episodes to forward Pedro's gayness.
Right.
So I remember sitting there and watching him on the show and thinking how cute Pedro was, but actually thinking how cute he was and thinking I didn't want to get AIDS. So anyway, that was the wake-up call. That was the wake-up call for me. That's what Pedro did. He made that human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He made that human for me out here in these streets, running around trying to find a man. It was like, put a condom on it. So what Pedro did and his boyfriend did, and they showed Latino black love and that was the 90s. Right. So much respect to them. But somehow, some way, in 2002, my black ass finds myself on Big Brother. And I had never watched the show before, had no idea what I was doing, didn't know how to play the game, but I knew how to work a room. And this is convoluted, but do you know who Karen Calabrese is? She owns she owns a bunch of vegan restaurants and holistic health, and she's always on Oprah for looking, being 100 but looking like 60. Karen, I'm sorry, I love you. Karen's one of my friends, and her daughter Nikki is one of my best friends. So Nikki, I will always go for the joke. I'm so sorry. God. So Nick, but I just plugged you on this podcast, Karen, and if y'all out here vegan, go to Karen because she did Beyonce and she did Angela Bassett. She's the top of the top. No doubt. I used to come out here and do a cleanse with her, a month-long cleanse, and would drop weight like that, then take my ass back to LA and be fat again a week later. Anyway. Anyway, Karen, I love you. So Karen's daughter was out in LA. And Karen's daughter, Nikki, had been a model, and that was kind of how we met, but we met through Karen years ago. So Nikki was out in L.A. doing production, and she was working for Endemol, who owns Big Brother.
Right.
They went to her, and they were like, do you know any black guys? And Nikki was like, do I know any black guys? I know Marcellas Reynolds. He's black, he's gay. And so she starts telling all these crazy stories about me and her running the streets, because Nikki and I used to run the streets together. And then she whips out my comp.
Right.
And she's like, this is him. And they're like, oh my God, he's good looking. And so they're like, would he ever do it? So she calls me and she's like, they want you to do Big Brother. And I was like, okay, let me see what Ford says. So Ford was like, absolutely not. That'll ruin your career. Because I was still modeling at that time. Mm-hmm. But this is how the Lord works. I was dating this really rich guy who lived in New York. And I was not dating him simply because he was rich, but God knows that helped. And I was slacking on my model career because fuck going to a casting with like 500 guys, skinny, younger guys when my man is a millionaire and I'm driving to my casting in a car service because he has a car, he has a limo. Right. So I'm like, a rich wife. I'm going and picking up his suits from Gucci and I get to Gucci and the salespeople would be like, Andrew said if you want something, get something. I'd be like, I'll take that and that and that and that and that and send it, because I can't carry it, even though I'm in the car, like that kind of thing. I was him. I was absolutely positively 100% that bitch, running around, choosing marble for the apartment.
I've heard stories about people like you. I never thought I'd actually meet you. This is incredible.
I was her and she is me. So at a certain point, so here's what happens. So Andrew and I get into a fight at Helmut Lang about a jacket. Because there was this jacket from Helmut Lang, a jean jacket that I really wanted. And Andrew's thing was, why don't you I'll buy it. And I was like, you have to stop buying me things. I have my own money. I didn't have no money because I really wasn't working. I was just taking care of his ass, getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, choosing his tie, tying his shoes, basically wiping his ass to keep that money train going. But anyway, but I was in love with him. And I think that's what you do when you're in love with somebody. If he gets up at 6, I'm getting up at 5:30 to make sure that the coffee is hot, Fact. And I'm like, making sure his, ironing his shirts and da-da-da-da. And he dropped some cash on the counter on the way out. And he'd be like, go, take your girlfriends out for lunch. And the car will come back and drop me off at work and come back. And then what was the driver's name? Anyway. So I was like a lady who lunches in New York. So anyway, we get in a fight over the helmet laying jacket. I decide I have to reconfirm my position in this relationship. So I'm like, I'm going back to Chicago where I know I can work and make some money. So I take my ass back to Chicago to 18th Street to my sister's house. And I'm sitting there like morose in my sister's house because like now the money train is gone and I have to work for a living again. And all of a sudden, Andrew stops calling me like every 5 times a day and like da-da-da. So something is wrong. There's a shift. So I'm just like, what the hell is wrong? So me being me, I was like, bitch, why are you not calling me? What is going on? And he started mentioning this guy's name over and over. So I was like, who the fuck is him? Is you fucking him? What is going on? And Andrew, who was British, was all like, I can't believe you're talking to me like this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, because you ain't seen my ass black yet. But what you didn't realize is you full on was engaged with a black woman. So if you start acting out, you gonna get Clarice, you gonna get Bernice. Because that's what I grew up with.
Wow.
And they don't play.
Wow.
They not gonna get played and they don't play. So that's what you're getting right now. Come to find out, he was banging the guy from the Real World Chicago, who was a white boy, kind of a model, taller and younger than me. And so all of my triggers were triggered. He's a model, I'm a model. He's younger than me, he's taller than me, he's whiter than me. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? But I had Andrew by the balls, to be honest. So he came from New York to see me. And then I was like, okay, so I'm going to put on this outfit and I'm going to see him and I'm going to make him fall in love with me again. Then when he got here, I was like, why am I going to put on Why am I going to put on a shirt that you think I look good in so that you could tell me what's wrong with me and tell me that white boy is better than me? So I was like, fuck you, it's over. Don't call me again. And he was like, well, I just got on a plane to come see you. So what? You rich. So right when that whole thing happened, Nikki called me again and she was like, CBS really wants to talk to you.
Wow.
And in my head, it was like, oh, you banging the guy from the Real World? Well, meet the motherfucker from Big Brother.
And that was the decision.
So they came from LA, met me at NBC Tower.
Yeah.
I was a mess because I had just broken up with Andrew. So I was crying 1 second, and then the next second I was banging on things, and I was like, nobody treats me like this. I am beautiful. I am perfect. And, I was like all over the place. And so they're taping this, and they're like, oh, my God, this motherfucker's crazy. This is exactly what we want on television.
You were perfect.
I mean, I was perfect.
But you weren't even trying to do it.
I was just processing through the thing. And the cab driver that day on the way had hit on me. And there was this whole riff I did about like appropriate occupations to date me and inappropriate occupations to date me. So not only am I like crying 1 second and broken the next second I'm all like, how dare he talk to me? I'm like, I am the descendant of kings. I cannot date a cab driver. But then I gave the guy my phone number because he was fine as hell and he was Egyptian. So it was this whole conversation.
Lord have mercy.
So needless to say, I got cast on Big Brother.
Welcome back to Randomly Selected, powered by the Silver Room. Here we talk to Marcellas about how he blew the whistle on diversity at CBS and how that propelled him to end up on TMZ, which is always questionable when you see somebody on TMZ. We also talk about supreme models and supreme actresses in great detail. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcellas Reynolds.
All right. I was the first ever black gay contestant on a major reality show. The first night, within 2 hours of them meeting me, 6 White House guests decided that I shouldn't be there and were going to vote me out. When you have 11 white people and one other, the other is always against the ropes. And that's what was happening season after season after season on every Big Brother show.
Right.
In like 23 seasons, there had never been a black winner of Big Brother. That's because in 23 seasons, every time there was a black person on, they went in the first half of the show. I managed to stay 10 weeks. Up to that point, the black girl that stabbed me in the back actually got to the end.
Didn't you
during
form a
season
coalition or something with some folks?
I was taking the black girl to the end.
I'm not telling you I watched it. I'm just saying.
That's me, though. I was taking the black girl to the end. I was
Yeah.
like, it's going to be me and you. It's going to be melanin. What you wearing? Because I'm going to be snatched wearing helmet Lang. We're going to be sitting in that chair. But she realized that I could beat her, and she got rid of me, which was, in a way, smart. Mm-hmm. But you got rid of the only other black person, and your goal was to take a white straight male to the end. Mm-hmm. I don't care. That's fucked up. I don't care what your thought process was, because you know that white boy was going to beat you.
Right.
If it was a white straight man sitting next to a black woman at the end, all they was going to do was talk about how horrible your game was and how great he was. The only chance you had at winning was to take the black gay guy to the end with you. So at least they could be like, oh, well, the black gay guy, you said this in the diary room. You did that. Da-da-da-da-da. You talked all that shit behind our back. She didn't see that. But season after season after season on all their reality shows, from The Amazing Race to Big Brother to Survivor, it took hell and high water to get black people to the end, because the white people always grouped up against the black people.
Right.
And so the diversity pledge, thank you, COVID, thank you, the protest, was we gonna give black people a fighting chance. So we're putting half people of color in the house. And look what happens. 6 black people go to the end, and there's a black winner. First time ever, final 3 is 3 black people. Final 2 is 2 black people. And then all the viewers got turned up because they're like, that's racism. If all the black people stick together, y'all been doing that for 23 seasons to us.
Right.
And now you see what it's like. We literally showed you what you do to us every day, not just on game shows, at work.
Yeah.
Walking down the street, in clothing stores, living our lives black. This is an examination of how it is to be black. You are always up against the ropes. So when TMZ called and was like, do you want to speak on it? I was like, do I want to speak on it?
Did you put the Vaseline on your face, slip on your chucks and stuff?
Take my earrings off, put some razor blades in my afro. Do I want to speak on it? I've been waiting to speak on this since day one.
And speak on it you did.
And I spoke on it. And I took the hit because, everybody was like, well, that's racist and he's racist and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think you need to get the Webster's Dictionary out and look at what racism really is.
Right.
And look at the definition, because being pro-black does not mean I'm racist. Stating the obvious and telling the truth does not mean I'm racist. I've been the victim of that. I've been lucky enough to walk into rooms where other black people have not gotten to go, and it's never lost on me that I am a trailblazer, and then I open this door, and that's what people of color do.
And always have done.
We open the door. But not only do we open the door, we hold that motherfucker open for everybody that comes after us.
Say that.
Your
book, Supreme Models, is called one of the greatest books ever made. And now you've got Supreme Actresses. Talk to me a little bit about Supreme Actresses.
First
2 fine-looking books, by the way.
2 gorgeous, beautiful books. 2 dark chocolate black women on there on both covers. First ever art book devoted exclusively to black actresses. Supreme Models was the first ever art book devoted exclusively to black models. Thanks to my grandmother, I have a love of books, and I collect art books, and I saw a hole in the market, There were all these books that celebrated models. A book in 2011 came out called Vogue Faces of Beauty.
Yes.
And they only had 2 black models in it. There's like 100 models in the book.
I recall the criticism.
And there's only 2. You put Iman and Naomi Campbell as though those were the only 2 black models in. But there's all these mediocre girls that didn't even get as high as like other black or Latino or Asian models. And so when I saw that, I was like, went on Amazon, because I bought that book, went on Amazon, gave it 1 star, and was like, where's Veronica Webb, and where's Leah Kabidi, and where's Alec Weck, and where's Tyra Banks, and where's blah, blah, blah. And that was the night I decided to write Supreme Models.
Wow.
Like, just like that. That's how it happened. And then Supreme Actresses, when I put the last I and crossed the last T on Supreme Models, Supreme Actresses came to me. And I was like, because most models want to be actresses. Mm-hmm. And it was just the natural progression. And that was what that was where I went. And Supreme Models did exactly what it was supposed to do. It, like you said, Book Authority named it one of the top 100 fashion books ever. At one point, it was in the top 10, and now it's in like the 30s. But it's one of the top art books ever. And Vogue in 2019 named it one of the 9 best fashion books of 2019. But for me, what was more important is that in 2020, Essence named it the #1 Black book on Black style.
Wow.
And Essence to me is like the Black. It's like the Black Vogue.
Yeah, it is.
And so for Essence to like reach out and acknowledge something that I did was amazing. I mean, I'm not saying that American Vogue, look, I'm gay. Like, I worship at Anna Wintour Stone. Let's be honest. Andre Leon Talley is like, Buddha.
Yeah.
But but when Essence calls you, singles out your shit, and it's like when your mama read Essence and your grandmother read Essence, that's major. When your sister sees it and calls you, and she's like, "You in Essence?"
Yeah,
I'm like, I know I'm in Essence. My brother's a bad bitch.
Wow.
And now, I sold Supreme Actresses during the pandemic, during the protests.
Yeah.
And so that's not lost on me that like when so many people were losing their lives from COVID and so many people were, in a place of anger and hate and despair during the protests, Supreme Models went back to #1. Like, people started buying the book again. There was like a day where my literary agent called me. No, my editor, who was like the vice president of Abrams. Your big dog when the vice president calls. She called me up and she was like, did you sell the second book yet? And I was like, no, we're in a pandemic. I'm like over here with my air fryer trying to figure out if I can make a cake in it. And she was like, I'm eating waffles, like, and fish sticks and tater tots, whatever the fuck I can cook in my air fryer because it's supposed to be healthier. That's what I'm doing during the pandemic.
Right.
And she was like, because Abrams had passed on the second book. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to do another Black book so soon. So close to the first one, whereas I was ready to do the second one right after the first one came out. So when they passed on it, I had the right to go try to sell it someplace else, right. But I hadn't done that. So they were like, "Listen, if you're ready, we're ready. We want that book." And I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "Just so that you know, yesterday your book sold 1,000 copies
in a day.
In a day.
Damn, that's nice."
And there was like this weird lead up to it. There were all these Black books that had been out forever that were now #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list during the protest. And that was not just because Black people were buying those books, because we probably already had those books. That was other people. That was the other that were trying to understand finally our frustration, trying to finally understand our pain. And they were pushing our books to #1. And all of a sudden, my book was, after being out, 8 months, was back in the spotlight. And that was when they greenlit Supreme Actresses. And she was like, so let's make this easy. We want the book, and you've got 6 months to write it.
And we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
And I was like, I can't write a whole ass book in 6 months. My fat ass stopped, trying to come up with cake recipes for I was treating my air fryer like an easy bake oven. Remember the easy bake oven? Back in the day, you could bake a cake with a light bulb.
Yes, sir. Oh my goodness.
Somebody told me you could bake a cake with the air fryer, and I was like, I'm gonna bake me a damn cake with this air fryer. It does not happen. It does not work. That is an urban myth. That is like alligators in the sewer.
Right. hey. Marcellas, the ladies are gonna be mad at me. I gotta ask just real quick. Micah ever coming back? Or is Bold and Beautiful still on? I haven't watched the soap opera in forever.
That's so funny because Michael was supposed to be a recurring character.
Bold and the Beautiful.
On the Bold and the Beautiful. They couldn't decide what they wanted me to be. One day it was an art director, one day it was a fashion stylist. And I would come in and I would be all over the top. It was a dark and stormy night. The boat was rocking. You know, it was perfect for me. And the girl that played the woman, the actress that played the receptionist, it was supposed to be me and her. And we were supposed to be like this comedy team, basically, you know, being over the top. Yeah. She left to do a show on MTV called South of Nowhere. And it got like one season. And when she left, they were like, well, you know, there's no reason to have Mika because you were supposed to be her bestie, her gay bestie on the show. And I was like, you salted my game to go do a show on MTV that got canceled and didn't even make it a season. So no, Mika ass ain't coming back. But you know what? I got my own show coming out, so I don't need, you know, Bold and the Beautiful to call me.
Where is the show? If you could talk about it.
Oh, yeah. During the pandemic, I don't know what y'all was doing in the pandemic, but my ass was working. I was out here banking coins, and I was out here. I got fat as hell. I put on 40 pounds during the pandemic, which I worked off because I'm sitting here sleek.
Here we go.
I got 10 more to lose though, because that pandemic weight, that waffle weight was a trip. I got bitch tits now. I got back fat. I ain't never had that before, and that shit is resilient fat. That fat don't want to go away. I call it resilient fat because I'm doing abs. I got my kettlebell workout. I'm walking and running 8 miles, 10 miles, and I still got back fat and bitch tits. But whatever. But I just sold the show, so I might go and get a tune-up and not have either of those again. But that's the lazy man's way out. Anyway, I partnered with Iman, the legendary supermodel.
Oh, whoa.
And we sold Supreme Models as a 6-part documentary. And we sold it to YouTube.
Awesome.
And
a YouTube original?
We pitched it. It's a YouTube original. We pitched it everywhere, and there was a bidding war to get it, and YouTube came out on top. And I'm actually thrilled that YouTube came out on top because they came with more money and more episodes, and they came with a diverse, beautiful team. Nice. And, you know, they've been picking up a lot of things. You know, they've got the Alicia Keys show. They've got the Will Smith show. They've been picking up a lot of things in the black space authentically. And this is going to be it. And this series has been a long time coming. And to partner with Iman, you know, I couldn't even get Iman to do an interview for Supreme Models, you know, however many years ago. And now I sit on the phone with Iman and listen to her, like, you know, yammer about, like, you know, everything, you know, because she yammers so beautifully with her, like, accent. We were literally sitting on the phone talking about her look from the Met Gala. And I was like, the little black gay boy who I never met my father. And there was an issue of Ebony that had Iman on the cover. And it had her daughter, Zulika, I think her daughter's name is, and it had her first husband, Spencer Haywood, on the cover. And I saw that Ebony that my grandmother had, because she had a subscription to Ebony, she had a subscription to Jet. And I was so curious about what my father looked like and who he was, how he dressed, what his voice sounded like. And I kept that issue of Ebony between my mattress for years. Because the little girl looked so happy. And Iman was so beautiful, and he looked so kind. And I thought that that's what my father would look like. So to be able to like sit on the phone with Iman and talk shit.
That's not a bad day. That's not a bad day. Listen, you are the DuSable of this shit. And I'm very glad that I had a chance to meet you, man. After watching you on TV and being able to being able to see your work and just watching how, you know, Chicago ain't so bad. There's some brilliant people coming out of Chicago, Illinois, doing brilliant things, and you are definitely one of them. I really, really, on behalf of Silver Room, appreciate you being on Randomly Selected. Thank you so much, Marcellas.
Thank you so much for having me. This means a lot.
Right on.
Seriously.
A big thank you to Marcellas Reynolds. Hilarious, awesome, dope brother. Really appreciated you being on Randomly Selected on this episode. Thank you again a million times. Next on Randomly Selected, he's the host of The Full Go on Spotify, and he's also the host of Chicago Bulls pre- and post-game show on NBC Sports Chicago in Chicago. I'm talking about my man, Jason Goff. That's next on Randomly Selected. On behalf of everyone at the Silver Room, thank you so much for finding us. Subscribe and tell your people too. Have a great one. Peace.